Welcome to whisky.com, where fine spirits meet. My name is Luening, Horst Luening. I'm the master taster of whisky.com, and today we have another frequently asked questions from our audience. And well, you see two bottles here in my cask, and those two bottles were the best I had in the last weeks. So the first topic will be my best list, very often asked for. The second will be what happens to old casks in Scotland. And the third one is, well, the Brexit. What happens to our whiskey when Great Britain leaves the European community? So first, the best list. I'm quite often asked, which was the best whiskey you had? Or can you give me an idea of the best whiskies so that I'm able to choose for my next buy? Well, I had 1,200 whiskies tasted already, but my memory is not that exact, not that photographic in terms of taste that I can say, well, 4 years ago I had this brut Auchentoschen XYZ, and this was the best, or the best of the Auchentoschens. No. This memory fades quite fast, and after half or a year, all those impressions I had are mixed up. And well, I can remember 1 or 2 dozen whiskies which I really like, but I can't tell you this is number 1 and this is number 2. So there is a small group of really very good whiskies which I like most. One of them is the Glenlivet 18. I said that when I tasted it last week. Well, how to build that list? Therefore, I should have a rating system, and I should give points, and I do not like points. Whiskey is a very individual thing, and when I taste this whiskey today, then I give it 92.5 points. And if I taste it tomorrow, it might be only 89. So there's a widespread in the feeling I have with this whiskey, and this depends on my mood. If I had food in front of, so there are differences between my judgments. And so I avoid giving points. What I find good is if users of our forum or our whiskey database give points, so that there is a big average of a lot of, well, different people. And then I believe in this. It's the wisdom of the crowd. What I will do in the upcoming future, I will put those whiskies which I like aside from the others, and well, I always collect my whiskies for a little time, and then I taste it or I give it to for samplings to a few close friends, and after that my friends take these or that, and then they are gone, and I will keep those very best aside so that they do not they aren't taken by my friends for a month. And so I will add up the best whiskies in a month, and then I will tell you in an extra video which the best whiskies of the last month were. But my timing or my time scale is different to yours. This video will be published quite soon. Now it's July 18th. And it will be published probably tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. I intended to take this video a little bit earlier, but I was on vacations. So I had to take videos in front for a longer time, and they were published during my absence. So it was probably last month, and when I tasted that whiskey last month, it shouldn't go in the monthly best list. That's a problem. So there is sometimes a very small gap between taking the video and publishing the video, and sometimes a long time between taking the video and publishing it. And I decided for me that my time scale is the right one, that I will collect these whiskies from the first to the last of the month, and then in the beginning of the next month I will take that video of the best ones, and I will tell you in which time span I took those videos and not the time span in which I published those videos. So be careful and don't look too deep into this time scale. From time to time it will vary a lot when I'm on vacations. These two were the very best ones from the last weeks. It's the Crown Royal XR and the Glenlivet 18 years, and to the video of the 18 years I already told you that that is one of my very, very best whiskies I like most for already decades. This was that. So look forward to these new videos which will show up regularly. The next one was what happens to the casks. Well, a cask is typically produced in the US as a cask for bourbon, and after the first usage, the American regulations say, the US American regulations say that the cask has to be as not to be reused, so it comes over to Scotland, is reused there, and this is called a first fill, the first fill after the primary fill with the bourbon. Then these ex-bourbon casks are reused, and this is typically up to 30 years. After 30 years, there's very, very few left in the cask, and in the end there's only those weird aromas showing through, which tends to deliver bitterness. So all this vanilla, caramel, lots of aldehyde and coconut and whatever comes out of those bourbon casks will be gone then after 30 years. The same is true for the wine casks from Europe and the very few rare European oak casks from the sherry industry or port wine industry. They typically use American white oak as well. And they used the cask for several years in former times, and in the meantime they used the cask just 1 year for their sherry and port wine maturation, or the barrique maturation. And after that year the cask comes to Scotland, and it's also a first fill, but it's the first after the primary fill, and then you can use it again for 30 years. There is a difference how long the cask was used before, because the first liquid tears out the aromas as well. So you have to include the time span in which the bourbon or the wine matured in the casks. And after those 30 years, in former times the casks were halved and were used for, well, over the garden centers, they use it for, how it's called, where you put blooms in. Yeah. But the controllers of the whiskey industry found out that you can rejuvenate a cask. That means that you take out the charcoal from the inside with a steel brush. I've seen that at the Loch Lomond distillery in Alexandria, at Loch Lomond. So you brush very heftily the charcoal and every loose wood substance from the inside of the cask, and after that you toast the cask again. So you're warming it up until up to 150 centigrade, so that the cellulose converts into sugar. The cellulose inside the wood converts into sugar, and those sugars are caramelized, and from that the whiskey receives the brown color. And then there is a red layer in the middle of the stave from the cask. The inside is converted, it's thermal activated, and the outside is typical normal oak. And then you can toast the cask again and move the red layer to the outside so that the fresh wood or the not thermally activated wood comes into action, and the cask is rejuvenated. But this time it's not the first fill what you put in. No, it's the primary fill. It's a rejuvenated cask. It's a uvenated cask which delivers a strong, hefty, American white oak taste or European oak taste. And therefore you find more bottles which are finished in fresh casks. Those are the rejuvenated casks. And after those second 30 years, we're heading for 60 years now, you might be able to rejuvenate it a third time. And then you would end up with 90 years of cask life. But the staves are getting smaller and the cask is unstable the thinner the staves are. And in former times, casks were dropped from the lorry to just a mat lying there on the floor, and then they moved it further to the warehouse or to the filling station. And today, well, you have to transport them upright on pallets, and you move it with forklift. So the mechanical stress on the cask is not that intense as it was in former times. So rejuvenation of casks is possible and is done. And in former times, casks were moved from the distillery to the bottling, to the blend industry, and then it came back to independent cooperages where they were refitted and sealed again and proofed and whatever, freshly colored on the ends. And then they went back to arbitrary distilleries. And today, with the big international companies, they have a closed movement of casks in the own corporation. So the bourbon distillery is owned by the same international corporation as the Scotch whiskey distillery, and so the casks move along to inside the company, and the rejuvenation takes place inside the cooperage of the company. So the casks are in a closed system, and now they are the controllers and looking after what's happening to the money and to the casks, so that they're spending the minimum amount on casks. So the chances that you're getting a used cask are getting lower and lower. Probably, you should ask smaller distilleries if there are casks left over. The third is Brexit. Brexit, wow, very difficult, very, very emotionally enforced by both sides of the exit. And wherever you are living on this earth, there is a place called European Community, where 28 countries tried to build, a common state, but they do not succeed in. And Great Britain, which consists out of Britain, Wales, Northern Ireland, Scotland, all together, and the Crown dependencies are very difficult. There's a video how it's explained what the United Kingdom is. Very fast, but very complete. I recommend that. And now they move away from the European community. And this is, that's a foul in the mind of the politicians. And therefore, emotions are strong, and the Britons are fought by the remaining members of the European community that they're doing wrong. And everybody says whiskey is becoming more expensive in Europe. Well, will it really? The conversion rate between pound and euro changed dramatically. The pound lost in value a lot, I think 20%, something like that. And this means that all exports from Great Britain will be cheaper. You will be able for the euro to buy more value from the UK. This is a very good thing for Great Britain because they are strengthening their export. And it's bad for the EU because it's good for the EU because they are able to buy more with the strong euro and the cheap pound. And the Britons have the advantage that their export is increased. Typically people say, there will be taxes and not taxes, duties between the countries. Trade barriers will be rising, but be very careful. Germany, as the biggest part of the residual European community, exports for 250 billion euros. So it's the trade balance is very positive. Germany is an exporting country. And the UK has a negative value, so they are importing for 150 billion. And if you build trade barriers inside the European community against Great Britain, then Great Britain will increase their trade barriers against the European community, and all export to Great Britain will be more expensive because of those duties to be paid at the frontier. So on one side, the pound reduced in value, so the exports are very strong from Great Britain, and they lost 20%, and the tax is typically, the duty is typically put on imports to the EU are about 2.5, 3.5, 4% maximum. So if you put 4% duties on the imports into the EU, there will still a discount of 15% due to the conversion rate. But the other way around, the Britons aren't able to buy the growing expensive European goods, and you put 4% duty on top as well, then every export to the UK will be lost. So it's the will of all business people inside the European community. First, no duties at the frontier to Great Britain. It will hinder the exports. And Great Britain will import in turn from other countries in the world. And don't forget, Great Britain is part of the Commonwealth of Nations. And this is the biggest free trade association around the world. And you always can see when the Queen or the princes travel around the world, and they stay in Canada, they stay in Australia, they are in India, they all belong to the Commonwealth of Nations. So there is a high potential for those trades if the European community builds up their duties. So there will be no duties on whiskey, and probably the whiskey will become cheaper in the European community, but there are big corporations governing the trade between the countries. So they have, for example, Diageo as the biggest spirits producer in the world. They are located in London and in the pound, and they will export their whiskey to subsidiaries on the continent, and there they have internally a fixed conversion rate, because it's quite difficult to optimize a moving company when the conversion rates changes every day. So you fix internally the conversion rate, and then you're able with your controllers to optimize the complete system. And the next year you change the conversion rate, and then you optimize again. And therefore they will not change the conversion rate until the end of the year, probably, or for a complete year, whatever. I don't know when they are changing the conversion rate. From time to time, they typically have an exact time when they change the conversion rate. But if there's a need to change the conversion rate, they will do extraordinary. But it's a lot of effort for all people involved in the processes. So there will be nothing over the upcoming month, and probably the next year whiskey will be getting a little bit cheaper in Europe. But even if they change the conversion rate internally, they will not move this advantage forward to the customers. They try to to gain as much money as before, because if they are strong in the euro zone, this will convert into more pounds. So you can earn a lot of money if you try to keep your profits high or increase your profits due to changes in the conversion rate. So in the end, there will not be much differences in the whiskey prices. No. There will be a reduction in whiskey prices if the economy slows down in Europe. Then the whiskey prices will go down. So it's more market-driven than production-driven. Yeah, that's it for now. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned. There's more to come. And well, next time probably I show you the best lists. And well, the next FAQs should be out in the middle of the next month. So in the middle of August. Thank you.